What's poppin', players? Welcome back to a TwoPennyGames review. This time, Silent Hill 2, the remake. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend, good buddy, the co-host, and the lead reviewer of this review, Connor Elliott. Say hello to the people.
How's it going, guys? Beautiful day.
Beautiful day. Beautiful day. Connor, you...
Finally.
Yeah?
I'm finally done playing this piece of shit.
Oh, God, no, Connor,
night.
no! The YouTube algorithms, no! Anyways, Connor, you have played Silent Hill 2 Remake. Not only did you play Silent Hill 2 Remake, Connor, you did your homework, and you went and you played the original Silent Hill 2 in preparation for this game and this review. So let me start this off, Connor. How did you feel about the original Silent Hill 2?
You know, if I was to be giving it a score based off our standards, I would say that Silent Hill 2 is a great game.
Ooh, that's an 8 out of 10 on our scale.
It is, 8 out of 10. And the main reason why is it has a level of charm to it. It's kind of campy. The voice acting is not that great, but it adds to the charm of it. In the same way, like the weird narrative telling of a Metal Gear Solid game has charm to it. It has great music. It's very nice, and it's got a great tone. It's scarier compared to its other contemporary, Resident Evil, and has, well, it's about the same amount of horror, now that I think about it, in terms of how much it's scaring you. But it's got a great narrative. Clearly, that's the main focus of the game. The big thing that holds it back the most is that the gameplay isn't super engaging. You know, it's not good, but the game doesn't require you to engage with it. You can work around it, and so it's not as big of a mark against it as it would be for some other games that do require you to do combat. But really, the tone and the narrative are really what made the original Silent Hill 2 as good as it is, and as well regarded as it is, now that I've played it. But right as you said, I did, I started it about 3 weeks before this one came out, the remake, and I beat it the day it came out, the remake. So I went right from that game into this one, and it did kind of lead to some fatigue. But I can look past that because it's entirely engineered fatigue by myself. And even with that, and some things I'll get on saying about Silent Hill 2 later, Silent Hill 2 Remake is an amazing game.
Ooh.
And I say it's an amazing, which is a 9 out of 10 on our scale. And the reason why I give it that is because it excels in the genre that it is, which is horror. This is one of the scariest, I'd say, horror games out there, at least to me. Horror is one of those subjective things. But what Silent Hill 2 is able to do isn't make you, scared because there's some enemy that's constantly chasing you, or there's constantly some jump scare or big fright that's around every single corner. It's the unsettling tone that the game is able to carry from beginning to end. For just walking through, the many, many hallways you're going to be going down, or the misty streets of Silent Hill's town itself, there's always some sound going on nearby. Sometimes it's an actual threat, like an enemy shuffling about or scrawling around on the ground. Sometimes, especially when you're in the main levels rather than the town itself, you're hearing creaks and moans and, audio cues that happen, which, I don't often take away from a game that the sound design is amazing. I can recognize when it is, but not many games are able to make it such a key component of the game itself as well as its horror than Silent Hill 2. It keeps you on edge the entire time, which I'll criticize a little bit in the sense of how I played it, because I wanted to beat the game since it's so narrative focused, and I wanted to compare as much to the original game since I just played it as I could. While also being able to just beat this game and not have to come back to it due to the sheer amount of amazing games that are coming out this year. So playing through it as much as I did, I felt fatigue. Not because the game itself was, dragging on more than it should have, which was a big surprise to me because it's larger compared to the original game by minimum 3 hours. Possibly, depending on how slow you are, it can go anywhere up to 6 hours more. For me, I finished the game in about 15 and a half hours, so not the longest game, a little bit longer than the 11 hours I played for the original. What's that?
Pretty good length, considering. I mean, Dead Space is, what, 12? Yeah. And the Resident Evil remake, well, Resident Evil 2 probably take you about 9. I want to say Village probably took that long. Biohazard took somewhere between the realm of, like, 6 to 8 hours. Resident Evil 4 was kind of long. Resident Evil 4 was probably about 15 hours. So
Yeah,
good
it
length.
might have
Good
been.
length is what I'm saying. Good length.
And that's the thing about it, because I was expecting, when I heard that it was going to be longer than the original, that was going to be one of my downsides when I start talking about this game. Well, I guess to finish my original point, because I played it so much and the tone of it is so overbearing and puts you on edge, that playing for long periods of time, you just get tired of it. You're just like, Jesus, can I just relax? Because I really wanted to jump over into Metaphor or jump over to Space Marine 2's multiplayer, just to be able to let loose and not be so wound up tight while I'm playing a video game. Because Silent Hill 2 is able to do that in spades. Like I said previously, due to the sound design, in large part, because there's especially a room, right? And in the original game, it didn't have this, but it's pitch black. You could barely see anything at all. And there's this randomly, it seems to have no pattern. There's this squelching, quick pattering that just goes around the room around you. And it got me so on edge that I, at some point, was like, you know what? I know nothing's going to attack me. It's unsettling enough just constantly hearing that while I'm trying to do these puzzles. I just took off my headphones. I didn't want to listen to it at that point. I was like, fine, I get it.
Game,
it scared me. I'm done.
The game scared the shit out of you.
Yes. And, I actually made me think, because I obviously wasn't as scared during that sequence. And so in that same mission, where once again there's always a lot of gibberings and and clatterings going on, I took off my headphones, and the game's horror aspect reduced by like half, which isn't a criticism. It's to show how effective that sound design is. But that's in addition to the enemies, because you probably have seen some of the Silent Hill 2 enemies. The mannequins are all obviously pretty famous, the nurses as well, and they're unsettling, particularly with the way some of them kind of undermine what you expect. Now, a lot of this has to do with the fact that I did play the original game, and the exact same enemy types are in this game, but in this one, they make it a bit better by improving the variety of them. So, for example, there's like the first enemy that's kind of a guy that's like in like almost like a straitjacket, he seems, and he spits at you, vomits. Eventually, it gets to a point where there are these ones with razor blades in them, which are like, the nurses in the game also have another variety that have the same kind of aesthetic going on, but their whole thing is that they explode when they die. And so you got to watch out for all of that pus that's going to come flying in your face. At a certain point, though, enemies in this game, when you take them down, they can get back up. So you have your beat mechanic or stomp mechanic, where you hit them while they're on the ground to make sure that doesn't happen. These guys turn from not doing that, due to the fact that they kind of implode and spray their juices everywhere, all of a sudden to getting up from that. And so it shocks you when it first happens, because you've gone through a large portion of the game not expecting that, and then all of a sudden just a small little change in there makes it a little bit more, just at least for the first time, unnerving. There's another one, the nurses, like I was saying, they always have like a steel pipe. Eventually they get a knife. There's a knife variant that attacks a bit quicker. They go down a bit quicker as well, though. And so it changes up that enemy type just enough to where the small amount of enemy variety are spiced up just enough. Last thing I'll say on enemy variety is the other variant, which is the kind of the stealth enemy. Because in Silent Hill, you have a radio, and whenever you're close to a monster, it starts emitting static. The only exception to this, and this wasn't in the original game, it was in the original game, but not to the same extent, was that these mannequin guys, they would stay still, and so they would bypass that function. And so those are the enemies that would be around the corner to ambush you and scare you and whatnot. And so you're always looking for those guys, especially with how they contort themselves to make it to where they're not obvious to be seen. But, at a certain point, you just get used to checking the corners. But then at a certain point, they start crawling on the goddamn walls. And you're all of a sudden, you're just having to, go from looking straight ahead at you and around corners to doing that exact same thing, but having to look up and hearing those noises come above you rather than just around the corner or somewhere else in the area you're at. Further adding to just that nervous tension that the game is able to, make you feel. And it comes at a point when you're kind of getting used to the enemies as they were. So it's designed like perfectly in that way. The sound design's so fucking scary. Like, god damn, it really, it carries a lot of this game. I guess next I'll talk about the narrative, because that's kind of what a lot of people talk about when it comes to Silent Hill. Fuck, I was gonna look this up before. James Sunderland's voice actor, fucking what's his? Damn it, he gave one of the probably the best performance of this year. I'll be surprised if somebody, you know what? When I was talking to myself, I said this exact same thing, and the exact same thing happened that just did, which is I thought about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah.
But, it's in that running because he sounds
shout out Johnny at Costa del Sol in
Johnny.
That's the best performance. Yuri Lowenthal.
Yuri Lowenthal.
Yeah,
and Luke Roberts. That's what his name is. Amazing job. He sounds like a guy who's depressed and just wants to find his wife. He just wants to. That's all he wants. He's a wife
find
guy.
My wife.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, and his interactions with some of the small amount of characters that are in the game, make him seem very composed by comparison to what is a great cast for how many there are. So there's I can't really talk about much because it unfolds why they're exactly in Silent Hill and their motivations and the kind of the characterization. You have to kind of play it to really appreciate them. But all of them do a good job at their voice performances, and all of them have very nuanced, subtle characters. It's not exactly like forcing in your face of this character is supposed to I can't say anything. Fuck.
You can't say it. You can't say it, Connor. I don't want to be spoiled.
I really can't. Yeah, and you'll enjoy it. So the narrative it's very surreal as well. Of course, Silent Hill is a game is it's able to play with that surreal nature very well in the same way that Resident Evil is able to kind of craft that perfect level that you base your game around. At least that's what the general conception people have when they think of the highest quality that Resident Evil gets. I'm thinking obviously Resident Evil 2 remake with the police station and the mansion in Resident Evil 1.
Yeah, you're talking level
this
design,
one.
Level design.
What's that?
Level design, yes.
Level design, yes. And this is where this game also does extremely well. It goes from the traditional, you're in this, you're in the hospital, you're in the apartments, you're in the hotel, and they're full of fun puzzles, interesting puzzles, very much similar to Resident Evil. Like the puzzles are where those games are most similar. They all have like a weird quirkiness to it. They're all kind of out there. You wouldn't really think of some of the puzzles the game throws at you. Sometimes not only just because you're in a surreal environment, but just because it's like, there's like this. I'll just say this one spoiler because it's stranger in the original game, but you basically have to loosen up the trash that's in a compactor by throwing down a can of juice. Very strange. You wouldn't think when you pick up the juice that, I'm going to go throw it in this dumpster or in this trash compactor or this trash chute. And, very weird way to solve puzzles.
So let me ask, in terms of level design, you're not getting like a complex Resident Evil style level design where like you're like scrounging around for keys and trying to unlock doors and you're are you backtracking through areas and stuff? Because I thought my understanding was this was a much more linear experience. I don't even have a good comparison. Sort of along the experience of maybe like a Resident Evil 4, but actually scary.
Yeah, it's definitely not. It's linear in the sense that you're not so based around backtracking. But when you drop into these areas, you come across some doors that are locked, and you'll find keys somewhere else in the house and go there. Yeah, I guess it's a lot less backtracky and more linear because you kind of hit every single main room. It guides you along that path. But it gets weird sometimes because there is the level that you're at, and then there's the other level that you're at. It flips it on its head.
Okay.
There's always two parts to a level.
Okay.
And let's just say the second ones are where it can get surreal and get weird, and that's when it plays around with some weird concepts. Especially the second to last area of the game. It was the highlight of the original one, and they just made it even better in this one. I'll just say you're going down some holes. You're going down as
I feel like going down holes, Connor.
Yes, like you would in Resident Evil 6. What?
I find myself in holes often. Sometimes I find myself in your holes.
Yeah, you made it weird. You know exactly what I mean when I say holes. Like a hole, like an actual, like man-made item. Well, supposedly man-made thing.
Get me in those manholes.
Point is the levels they're able to play around with things a lot more because it's very dreamlike at certain segments of the game. And so that leads to some interesting, not only level designs but also puzzle designs. Uh, I guess in addition, this doesn't go hand in hand, but the combat. The combat is vastly improved upon the original game, which isn't really saying much. Any game nowadays is probably vastly improving upon what the gameplay was in Silent Hill 2, the original. But it doesn't do a lot to like do anything crazy. You have your simple dodge, you have your melee weapon, and you have guns that you pick up throughout the game. You don't even upgrade these guns. You kind of upgrade your melee weapons, and by upgrade, I mean you get a new one after the first one, and then that's it. But the impacts of the attacks feel good in melee. Shooting is solid. You're not really fighting the controls at all. And it's more having to see the enemies in the darkness of these levels because, it's not brightly lit at all. It's very often you're looking down a hallway and you don't know what you're coming up on because it's just pitch blackness ahead of you. And the use of lighting is very minimal. Even when there's lamps and shit, it does nothing. Besides just add ambiance and creepiness to the scene.
It's dark as hell. Let me ask, does this game play better than the Alan Wake games? Because that's my big thing with Alan Wake, because I love the narratives of Alan Wake, but the gameplay leaves a lot to be desired.
I would say it's better, but not by a massive amount. I know you're a big fan of Resident Evil 2 Remake. That's on the lower scale compared to like, if we were to say like Alan Wake 2, this, and Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 2 Remake is on the bottom for me, definitively. I find that the
over Alan
shooting,
Wake? Are you insane?
Yeah, no, not at all. Because the aiming sucks ass. I'm gonna say it right now. I get the purpose of it is
that's intentional.
That it's not supposed to be perfect. Yeah, it's intentional, but I feel like with Resident Evil 2 Remake, you're just fighting the controls rather than engaging with a cool system. It sounds like you're just, having to deal with the cards that are thrown at you rather than thinking, wow, this is some good aiming, some good shooting, especially the fact that you're playing a guy who trained in the police academy. Like, you should have a steadier hand than you got, buddy. I don't care if you're in a zombie situation. If James Sunderland, the depressed guy who's trying to find his wife, can shoot better than you, you've got a problem. And combat's not that difficult. I guess that's one thing that Resident Evil 2 Remake does better. You know what? This will be the last time I compare Resident Evil.
Let's be honest. It's hard to shoot people sometimes. Sometimes it's hard to shoot people.
It's incredibly hard to, which is why I'm playing a video game and not
you know,
doing it in real life.
They got rotting skin. It's just very smelly. Very smelly, I'm sure, you know?
I guarantee you it smells worse in Silent Hill 2. Like, some of the places you go into, it smells like ammonia at the best of times.
I can't believe you think... I am shocked you think Alan Wake plays better than Resident Evil.
Oh, yeah, I totally
That
think
is
it does.
absolutely fucking insane to me.
It's got the weapons they throw at you are more interesting. The shooting itself is more interesting as well.
The weapon? What weapons? It's a pistol, a shotgun, and a rifle. It's the same shit you get in Resident Evil games.
And a bow. And the fact that they play better.
You get a bow?
Is what matters. Yeah, the crossbow.
In Alan Wake?
Types. Yeah, Alan Wake 2.
Is there a crossbow in Alan Wake 2? I don't
There is indeed. You got the bolts. You remember you even talked about how you would like use that a lot because you could recover the bolts.
Oh.
I thought you would just said you did that. I didn't.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't remember. I remember a lot of dancing in Alan Wake 2. That's what I remember. You know?
Oh, there's a lot of dancing.
A lot of dancing.
Not unless you want to go into the modded memes for Silent Hill 2, you're not getting a lot of dancing in this game.
Tough.
Or any at all.
Tough.
Yeah, but you know,
I don't
this
trust your
kind
gameplay opinion anymore. Just to be clear, I don't trust your gameplay opinion anymore.
That's fine. That's and my ultimate. See, you made the argument that Alan Wake 2's like, you know, it's you don't see it at all being close to at quality as Resident Evil 2 Remake. I guess my biggest, I have two biggest criticisms. One is the gameplay in that sense. I feel like those third-person, you know, horror survival games nowadays all feel like almost the exact same. The most different to me so far has been Resident Evil 4 remakes, and that's why it's probably my favorite out of all the Resident Evils.
Well,
but
it's more of an action game.
Exactly, but it plays around with that same like the same camera point of view, kind of the same general control scheme, and due to the fact that it leans more into that kind of gameplay to being action heavy, I think lends Resident Evil 4 remake a more fun. It makes it have a more fun gameplay experience than the three I was just talking about. Because even though Silent Hill 2 gameplay is solid, it's not exactly, you know, something I'm itching to go back for, or I was, you know, super excited to engage with when I was going throughout the game. It's just, I classify it under, modern survival horror, game mechanics. I mean, game controls.
My thing about it is that I'll just speak directly to what I know. Like the Resident Evil, like at least Resident Evil 2, like with the shaky aiming and the slow to recover on recoil type things, sort of plays into the other systems of the survival horrorness survival horrorness. I don't know how to say that without sounding weird. Of the rest of the game mechanics, the limited ammo and the limited health items and all these things, and really dependent upon survival. Alan Wake 2, to me, is just a very, very vapid horror game, horror action game, rather, where like the guns don't have impact. It's not satisfying to kill enemies in that game, and enemy variety is severely lacking, or at least like the ways in which you deal with enemies is very one note. Whereas like in Resident Evil, like sure, yeah, it takes 7 headshots to take down a zombie, or you shoot him twice in the leg, make him stumble, and you run past it. Like that alone, like adds so much more to gameplay and gameplay mechanics. Or you try and juke it, or you do this, that, and the third. Whereas like games like Alan Wake, you have to shoot and kill every enemy. You can't outrun them, like, or you can't evade them, if I jump over to like Dead Space, the weapons feel great to use. You can use them in different ways, and the unique game mechanic of aiming for limbs and shit makes the player be a little bit more creative. You end up just going for leg shots instead of headshots, but like a little bit more creative in how they encounter each enemy, especially as they have a wide variety of enemy types. You know what I'm saying? So like,
oh, I get what you're saying.
To me, like Alan Wake 2 is just such a shallow gameplay experience. Like even though it controlled quote unquote better, it didn't mean anything that it controlled better.
In the case of Alan Wake, I would say the thing that offsets that on the better side of things compared to Resident Evil 2 Remake is that while all those things are true, it doesn't engage with in the same interesting way. I never have to fight the controls. With Resident Evil 2, I do, to the point where it's not like making me feel like I'm dealing with these situations in a fun, creative way. It seems like I'm just dealing with inferior controls in a space where, it feels better to play something like Alan Wake 2 or now Silent Hill 2 Remake. A lot of it is connected to personal taste, I will admit. But at the same time, I just like, the survival aspect, those things are sick as hell.
I've never felt like I'm fighting the controls. Fighting the controls means like the character is not doing what I want them to do.
Yeah, I always felt that with Resident Evil 2.
Like, okay. Because to me, Resident Evil, all of them are like, these games control a specific way, get on board or get lost. Or not get lost, but get on board or struggle. Whereas, like, if you go to... the internet's going to be mad about me for saying this. If you go to, like, a Mario 64, Mario does things that I don't want him to do. Like, because of how those controls work. So then I'm fighting him in that sense because he's not doing what I want him to do, and I can't get him to do what I want him to do. Now, is that a skill issue? Maybe. But, like, that's what that means to me. Whereas, like, Resident Evil is just like, all right, well, yeah, you got to pace your shots out more. You can't go trigger heavy or you're going to miss other shots. And, I mean, for the most part, if you're just not bad, you're not going to get eaten. So, maybe you just suck, Connor. Maybe you're just trash.
Yeah. Maybe that
I totally
is the case,
derailed us. I'm so sorry. Silent Hill 2.
It
plays
got
well,
off
though.
track. But what's that?
It plays well, though.
It plays well. Yeah, it's not like It's just once again, it's not like you're not leaving the game with the gameplay in mind. It's the experience that you had, the horror experience, the narrative experience. Which to say something about the narrative, right? There's a variety of endings. There's 4 endings that you can get without being in New Game Plus. In this case, in the original game, I got the true ending, right?
What does that mean 4 without being in New Game Plus?
Because some are only the 3 other endings are locked behind New Game Plus. Like you have to beat the game once to get the other 3. So
there's 7 total endings, is what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
It's just you're only gonna have an option of 4 when you first play this through. And I had a particular ending in mind, and so I tried to follow the parameters to get that ending. And I guess the reason why is well, first of all, I got screwed over. I want to remember who it was.
So you didn't get the true ending this time?
No, I did.
Oh,
That's the thing, right? I went to GameSpot. I want to say it's GameSpot, and I looked up the parameters for getting the ending I wanted, and then I went to another one later on. Complete, like it was slightly, some things were the same, but way more comprehensive in the other one. So I feel like I kind of messed up there because of that resource I initially used, which was basically the endings. The way you get certain endings is pretty interesting. Like the ending I was going for, which was in this case the good ending. You get by staying relatively at full health. That's the main thing you do because, I won't go into why that makes sense, but, it's that. It's also looking at certain items, or I guess in the ending I was trying to get, not looking at certain items, which is where I think it screwed me. I won't go into it more beyond that to see what, ending you get when you go through it blind. I'm assuming you're going through it blind.
Oh, yeah. I'm not a coward.
Yeah. Well, I knew what the endings were, so I wanted to, and I knew how to get them. So
what if they were different, Connor? What if they were different?
They are not. Well, that's the thing. They are. In the worst, in a bad way. What?
The New Game Plus endings are new?
I didn't look into those. I only looked into the old ones. Those are the only ones I'm familiar with. And in fact, with the new one, I only looked into the ending I didn't get and was trying to get. But this is all to say, right, that the ending I got in this one was the same exact ending, the true ending, as the first game. I got it again in this one. And, aside from the fact that I was upset and confused as to why exactly I didn't get the ending I was going for and following a guide for, in the original game, it does. I watched all the endings and I was like, okay, that is the true ending, and so I was expecting that to be at least the same case in this one. Without talking about the two other endings, it sucked. This new true ending, and the reason why is because they literally took out a scene. Not only did they take out a scene, but something occurs before this removed scene was supposed to take place. That happens, and it literally just cuts to black immediately to a monologue that happened in the original game. But in this time, instead of black screen monologue, it's James Sunderland doing the monologue on screen. And then the original ending happens as it is. And it, even without
is he delivering a monologue like he's in the theater or something? Like,
you got to find it. It makes sense.
Like it's a stage
it totally
play,
makes sense.
Or...
I will not say, but it makes sense. It doesn't feel weird. The issue is that it just weirdly cut to black, and expecting there to be some, even if I didn't have the context of there being a scene in between that and the monologue, it really just felt like, oh shit, I'm in, like, game's over, game's ending, and that's not something you ever want to feel, especially because the fact the ending I was trying to get does include that scene, and it works in both endings. So I have no clue why they took it out for this one. But I remember, rather than feeling a sense of satisfaction when I beat the game, it was just disappointment and annoyance that I,
Oh, granted, that's because of knowledge based off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm not like marking against it, but it's more in the sense of this is an ending that's very easy to get, and the fact that it's also supposed to be like the true ending, and they just kind of screwed it over for no good apparent reason, just leaves me kind of baffled. I don't know why they made the decision they did. But I feel like, I want to see how you react without context with the game if you get the same ending that I'm talking about here. Because, I feel like even you would say that kind of just ended kind of abruptly, which for such a narrative-heavy game and the character journey that James goes on, that was very disappointing to see. And so even if it is with the context that I'm as disappointed as I am, I think other people would be as well, even if they don't exactly know why. Because of the fact that they were robbed of just, a comprehensive ending. But as you said, though, that's more my issue that I have with the game. It's not one that I would mark against it as a whole. Going back to the gameplay, it does, like the original one, provide you with the opportunity to go around people. My playstyle means that I killed everything on sight, but ultimately, it doesn't seem to facilitate getting around enemies as well as the original one did. But it's still a viable option, and you definitely see the path to take the more pacifistic, non-confrontational route. So it does give you a little bit of option in how you want to approach the combat, but really not all that much.
I can't wait to watch you play the Metal Gear Delta remake, because I'm gonna be sitting there just cringing my ass off as you get caught and then just start shooting everybody.
I mean, it seems like the combat in that game is going to be even easier. So I think that'll be a positive thing if I ever review that game.
We'll see.
What?
They updated the AI, so the AI is smarter. They'll catch you easier. So we'll see how that works.
Well, we'll see about that. We'll see if they fight easier. or they fight
Yeah,
better.
yeah, that's what I'm so curious about that. But that's for another remake for another day. Ladies and gentlemen, let us know how you felt about Silent Hill 2. I assumed you were done. I'm sorry. You're good?
Yeah. Oh yes. I talked about sound design. The music is amazing. Like it's
Ooh.
seriously amazing, and it doesn't always. So when you're in combat, I'm going back to sound design as well, because music does play when you're in, when you engage in combat, but it's music that has things going on within the soundtrack where even during the fights, whereas most other horror games, and once again, this is really how it excels as a horror game. You would be like, okay, I'm in combat. Maybe I can expect something to creep up on me, some enemy I didn't notice. I'll deal with that if they come into play. But what Silent Hill 2 does is you'll be in a fight, but the soundtrack makes it to where you never really know if something, unless they're like, the only way you would know an enemy is coming in to join the fight is by the noises they make. Other than that, the natural noises that are included in the soundtrack always make you like paranoid of what's going on around you while you're in the middle of these fights. And you never really quite know when something is going to come up on you until like nearly the last minute. And so even in combat, it creates that sense of like apprehension of not knowing exactly what's going on at any given time. Yeah,
that sounds a lot like what Dead Space Remake was doing. Now, granted, these games were Dead Space just happened, so there's no way that like affected this game's development, I would assume. No. But that's so fucking cool. I love the survival horror renaissance that we're in right now.
Yeah, it's nice, especially with going back to this classic after playing the classic. But the songs that play during those character moments, it's so interesting because it's not what you would expect from the kind of game it is. I knew that going in, it was going to have the kind of soundtrack it did because they had the original composer working on this one, making tracks that are very similar, and they just evoke this sense of like, not confusion, but not even paranoia, but it invokes a certain kind of emotion that makes those narrative moments hit harder than I think they would have without music involved. And so, this is an amazing horror game and an amazing narrative. I'll say this right now, so I get it out in the open. We do our top 10 games every single year. Usually, my standard is, well, when I rate a game a certain way, it's going to be higher. Like a 9 is going to be higher than 8s I give, on my list. This is not going to be the exception. There's going to be the exception this year with something with like Space Marine 2. I can say that's going to hit higher because I enjoy that game more. Yeah. But this is an amazing game because it is able to make a horror game that I'll always think of as like top 3 scariest horror games I've ever played. Alien Isolation is probably going to be the other one to give it the biggest run for the money. But, fresh off the boat of Silent Hill 2 Remake, it might be one of the scariest games I've played. And, I'm not a guy who gets scared easily. I'm kind of in that middle range where, like I said, I don't get scared easily, but I'm not super resilient to horror. And this one was able to break down my defenses more than most other horror games ever get the ability to do. Ever get the chance to do. So,
interesting.
My original point, this is how I'll wrap it up, is I had implored you to play Space Marine 2 over this one. Due to the, I won't rehash it. You know why. But for this one, with how much you love horror, you should play this as soon as possible because I think from a horror game, you'll enjoy this a lot.
I like getting spooked. I like it a lot. It's so much fun.
I'm interested to see if you have that like sense of paranoia I did while playing this game. Though I will recommend to you and to other people who play this game, don't binge play it. It's not the kind of game to binge play.
We'll find out.
You will find out.
Silent Hill 2 and Metaphor Refantasio very much on my list to play right now. I don't have any money. And so I will likely get to Silent Hill 2 first. One, because you can play the demo for Metaphor for free, and that's 10 hours of the game for free. So, it'll be happening in the background. But two, I really love survival horror games. So I'm very excited by this review. I can't wait to play it, and I can't wait to find out how I feel about it personally. Never played any Silent Hill ever.
I think that'll change because I want to play 3, but I have to play 1 first. What's this guy? Okay, so there's this last little thing. If you remember during PT, right? Mm-hmm. Those the phone calls that would go on. Mm-hmm. David Lodge, that's his name. He does the voice of Jiraiya from Naruto, one of his best roles, I would say. But the guy who does the voice on the recordings also does the voices on the recordings in this game, which I found was pretty interesting. I was like, was that intentional? I know for a fact he did one part.
Must have been intentional. Where if they're like, hey, we're gonna get the weird like sounding voice guy from the phone calls in the PT demo. Yeah, we're gonna bring him back and do more recording type things.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's gotta be intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Does he do the same voice?
What?
Does he do the same voice?
No. In fact, like whenever you hear like a recording of a voice in this game, to add to the surrealism of it, the dreamlike, state of Silent Hill, it's like there's a voice changer on it, on the person who's speaking, so it doesn't sound. It sounds like a distorted person's voice, and once again, it kind of adds to that detachment from reality that this game is able to provide for you, really only broken by the fact that you're seeing other characters from time to time. Other than that, Silent Hill 2 does its horror amazingly. Fantastic.
I love it. I can't wait to play, Connor. I'm so excited. Because of you, I have to play Alan Wake, which is...
Me? Oh, I did.
It's your fault. It is your fault. You put it in there. Nobody else was going to put it in there.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyways, check back in, hopefully.
Wait, no. Who put Alien Isolation there? Was that Phil?
I think that was Phil. I don't think I added any games because you guys kind of ran the gambit on what I would have selected anyway.
Because that one would have been worse.
Just because it's longer?
19 hours.
It's long. Yeah. It's a good game.
You would curse that far more. But you would curse... Oh, says the guy that, like...
The length isn't the problem, Connor. The length is not the problem. The game. The game is the problem. Because as much as I love the Alan Wake narratives, I really do love the narratives of the Alan Wake games. They don't play well.
They play fine.
No. They're boring. You want to talk about doing the same goddamn thing over and over again for way longer than you should.
Yeah, I mean, that's a criticism of the first one, I would say, more than the second one.
Yes, just because 2 at least had like puzzles and stuff, and then 1 just kind of so far just seems to be just a lot of like running and gunning.
Yep.
I'm spoiling the review, but also the puzzles in Alan Wake 2 not good. In fact, bad.
Not a notable part of that game at all, no.
Yeah. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that is our review of Silent Hill 2 Remake. What did you think of the remake down below? What do you think of the original game? Let me know down in the comments below. Remember, you can catch any and all reviews over at youtube.com/@TwoPennyGames or catch us stream our reviews live over at twitch.tv/TwoPennyGames every Monday evening. Thank you so much for watching, listening. Make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, and comment for more. But until next time, have a great time. And Connor, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye and good night.